Hi, my name is Dave and I'm a researcher. One of the questions I get the most frequently is how many participants do I need to do research? This is a more complicated question than you might think, so I'm going to break it down for you really quickly. In this video, I'm going to cover why does it even matter if you get the right sample size, like what's the worst that can happen if you're off by a little bit. Then I'm going to give you some direct answers for how many participants you're going to need for some of the most common examples in product development. Let's jump into it. First, why should I even care about getting the right number of participants? Does it really matter if I'm off in either direction? Figuring out the right sample size is really about balancing the cost-benefit ratio of the research that you're about to do. Let's start with cost. Of course, having a smaller study is going to be cheaper than having a large study. But the tricky part is finding the sweet spot, because it's not a one-to-one where each participant is going to cost the same amount going forward. It's actually kind of a compounding effect where having more participants is going to start costing you more and more as your sample size increases. The reason is cost is not just about the money it takes to recruit participants. It also includes the time it takes to analyze, the people it takes to have on your team to actually handle all the data. And if you scale up the data too much, you might actually need to bring more people on. Quick note, if you try to cut costs too much and you end up limiting your sample to the point where you don't have enough data, you might have to go back and collect even more data, so you'll end up paying for it either way. Let's talk about the benefit side of the equation. When it comes to having more participants, we're really talking about two things that you're trying to get out of it. One is having more information, more new information that you might not have with fewer participants. The second thing is having more confidence that your findings are correct. So it's about having enough information and being able to trust that that information is correct. More data is typically better. With the benefits of getting more data, you actually see diminishing returns as you collect more data. So past a certain point, it's really not worth the effort or the cost to collect more participants. There's a third variable that I didn't talk about before other than cost and benefit, and that's outliers. Outliers are interesting because having too few or too many participants is bad when it comes to outliers. If you have too few participants, outliers are hard to detect because you can't tell which ones are outliers and which ones are actual data. If you have too many participants, on the other hand, you'll actually see outliers pop up more frequently. And what that's going to do is it's going to trick you into thinking that those outliers are a real pattern. So I hope I've convinced you that at least finding the right sample size is pretty important. Here are the direct answers for how many participants you need for some of the most common types of research done in product development. For each of these examples, I'm going to be very specific about what type of study is being run and the context. I'm also going to give you a minimum amount of participants to run as well as a recommended amount. Usability testing. This is probably one of the most common methods you'll see in product development when it comes to user research. So we're talking about task-based usability testing with one prototype and one group of users. You're going to be looking at a minimum of 5 participants and a recommended amount of 8 participants. So let's break that down. Nielsen actually recommends having 5 participants for usability testing because they found that after about 5 participants, you detect 85% of all the usability issues in whatever you're testing, and you get diminishing returns after that. The reason I'm recommending 8 participants instead of 5 is that Nielsen's recommendation kind of assumes a perfect case scenario. You have an experienced team doing many iterations of usability testing, and you assume that nothing bad happens during the study. So no technical issues, no participants misunderstanding the study, all those things. Aiming for 8 participants sets you up for success without having to go back and collect more data. Next example, empathy interviews. So you're trying to learn about one topic area with one group of users. For empathy interviews, I would recommend a minimum of 15 participants, but you should really go up to about 20 to 25. Next one up, we're just rolling through these. Card sorts. So we're talking about open or hybrid card sorts with about 30 to 50 cards for one group of users to sort. For card sorts, I would recommend a minimum of 15 participants, but if you have the ability, go for 30, especially if your topic area is more complex or you're on the high end for the number of cards. Next, eye tracking. So we're talking about one set of stimuli that you'll be showing to one group of users. The minimum amount of participants you're going to want is about 40, and the recommended amount is also 40. Now, the way that you analyze eye tracking data is actually a quantitative method. So you actually need about 40 participants so that the heat map that comes out is stable enough for you to analyze. Not everyone that does eye tracking does the quantitative analysis, so if you're not going to be doing that, you can get away with fewer. Last example, A/B testing. So let's say you're testing one new version of a website against the old version or the control. For A/B testing, I'm going to give you a minimum ballpark number just to show you the order of magnitude of the sample size needed, which is about 1,000 participants. For methods like A/B testing or like a large-scale survey, you actually need to calculate the exact number of participants that you need to achieve the statistical power that you're looking for. If you're being asked to do this type of work and you don't know how to calculate sample size, I recommend finding someone in your organization who has the job title of either analyst or quant researcher or data scientist to help you out. It will really save you time in the long run. I do not recommend going out and just trying to learn the formula just to get the project done. There's too much room for error, and I'm not even going to try to cover it in this video. All right, that's it. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please let me know down in the comments. Also, if you liked the way that I talked about this topic and you have other research topics that you'd like me to cover, please let me know down in the comments as well. Bye now.